For anyone tuning in, I'm Jess Kyle. I'm the CEO and founder of Human First. And today I have with me Carl Frost, and I will explain why I wanted to have this conversation with him in a second. Um, my audio's messed up. This is my first live stream, so give me just a second while I figure this all out. There we go. I just had to mute Zoom. Technology's hard, y'all. Okay, so I'll explain in a minute why I wanted to have this chat with Carl today. But first, I want to go ahead and allow him to introduce himself.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, so I'm Carl Frost, and I have a company called the Living Life Beautifully Project, and it's all about helping people turn that light inside on, and get them going. But I have about 35 years of retail experience that I picked up. Started back in the day whenever home theater and big screens and things started becoming mainstream. So I started working at a place called Silo part-time and realized right away I was pretty good at sales, making more money than a lot of the full-time guys. So I went ahead and jumped in with both feet. And over the years, I gradually got into general management and leadership and talent development. And I was really good at that. But eventually, all good things come to an end. And after about 35 years of that, I went into the general office of the leader in my market to tell them that I was going to quit in 2 weeks. They said, "Well, what do you mean you're going to quit?" I said, "Well, I've been coming in here every morning at 7 o'clock and leaving at 9 at night." And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then 2 weeks, that's over. I'm done." So I left. And I started to create a consulting company when I got a call from a recruiter at a company called Assurance Solutions. Best job I ever had in my life. This was such a wonderful company, but I almost threw that job away because when she called, she introduced herself, told me her name. Her name was Rose, and she said, "Have you ever heard of Assurant?" I said, "No, I don't know what Assurant is." And she said, "Well, we're an insurance company." And I said, "Well, Rose, you sound like such a lovely person, but I got to be honest with you. I am never going to sit across the table from my grandma and sell her insurance." And I hung up the phone. So about 3 days later, she called back and I answered the phone and she said, "Look, you've already proved that you can hang up. So give me 5 minutes. It's not going to kill you to give me 5 minutes." So that turned into 20 minutes. And once they told me what they wanted, they were starting the process of creating a division to help create customized extended warranty programs for different clients. And then we're starting with the cell phone people first, and Cricket and U.S. Cellular and AT&T and T and those guys. But I think at the time it was Cricket and U.S. Cellular, which is the account they wanted me to be a part of. And so I joined their team. And when I joined, there was 5 people. There was only 5 of us. And we built that company, that division up to when I left just last month to over 100 people strong. And the wonderful part about that job, what was so wonderful for me was whenever I made that transition out of retail, I started this inward journey and search for how to be a better like human being, and just like how do I control that, and how do I get all of the joy I can squeeze out of every day that I'm alive. And so I started that process, and I learned a lot of things. I also it also helps me with Assurant by becoming what eventually turned into a program called the Culture Coach program. They contacted me and asked me to help create a program where we could onboard people and make them more field ready in a much shorter amount of time while not losing any of our culture in the process. And I had a reputation for really being able to connect and have relationships with our clients. And so I got to do that, and it gave me a voice that I had never had before. But all good things come to an end, and I retired recently, and decided to take all of those things that I had learned and start teaching other people how to find that strength inside them. And that's what the Living Life Beautifully project is about. So that's where I'm at.
And I've been along for the ride because Carl is also my dad. So the
Yeah.
reason, and this event is called From Ick to Authentic, Rethinking Your Sales Approach. Here's the deal, y'all. Here's what's been happening. And I think a lot of people have experienced this, but this has happened more than one time. I'll give you an example. I get a connection request. It's someone saying, "Hey, Jess, I'm really excited about the work you're doing with Human First. I think it's really awesome that you want to create more human-centered workplaces and cultures. And, I'd really love to connect and talk more about that," which of course to me, like I could talk about this stuff all day. So it makes me very excited and I'm thinking, this is so cool. Someone's interested in what I'm doing and I accept the connection and I start chit-chatting and we exchange like two or three messages and then it's, "So have you thought about what's your AI strategy? I'm selling this tool." And it's like I realized the whole thing was a sales pitch and they faked connection to trick me into listening to them. And it makes me feel stupid. And I hate feeling stupid, as many of us do. And it's not just that, it's also, I'm getting a lot of messages that are like, "Hey, I wanted to reach out to, I've been really impressed with all the success of your business. And I wanted to reach out and see, if there's something that I could maybe do for you." I work with, it's almost always AI, but it's also marketing or getting funding or whatever. Here's the thing. When you tell me I'm reaching out to successful business owners, I know for a fact that you have no idea who I am or what I do because my business hasn't made a single dollar yet. So what do you mean? I'm not, like by any standard metrics in the business world successful yet. So all of this has started, it started making me feel angry and it started making me feel this on I don't know, maybe anger is not the right word. I guess a sense of despair at the lack of actual human connection. I'm someone, and I think a lot of people are like this. If you're selling something, I get it. You have a job to do, and I can appreciate that. Just tell me what you're selling. Let's have a direct communication because I can save you a lot of time. And I wanted to talk to you about it because you're obviously the best. I've heard people explain my dad as someone who can sell ketchup popsicles to a woman in white gloves. So, very successful salesperson. He's sold all kinds of stuff. He's sold electronics. He's sold cars. He's, worked for this assurance company, with the insurance. And the constant theme is that he's authentic when he's doing it. He would always talk to us when we were kids. I have a sister and two brothers. He would always talk to us when we were kids about don't lie or fake who you are. Just be who you are, say what you want, and speak your mind. And and he led by example. Like that was how he sold. He would tell us stories about how he would get in trouble at work because he refused to lie to customers. He refused to tell people things that, like exaggerate or
Or
lie.
true, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I felt like you were the perfect person to talk to about this topic. And okay, you're a salesperson, or you're retired now, but
Right, right.
you're a salesperson. So tell me, am I the asshole here? Am I crazy? Because I respect people having a job and just trying to be successful, but this feels like not it.
Well, so there's a couple of things. First off, I just want to say for the record, it pisses me off too. But but there's a whole science behind this. So whenever you accept a connection from someone on LinkedIn, there's a couple of things that happen. The first thing is, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, this is a professional and they belong in my professional ecosystem,
Mhm.
right? But and when right click accept, that means you're a peer, not a vendor, you're a peer,
Right.
right? And so we have our conversations. And so there's this process that they go through on LinkedIn whenever they're trying to say something. It's connect, small talk, and the pitch. And as soon as the pitch happens, then there's a cognitive dissonance that happens, right?
Hmm.
And now you're just a liar,
Yeah.
or whatever. You're just, there's no authenticity there. And I understand people wanting to be on LinkedIn because it's probably, everybody's in one place. It's a shortcut. I can get to lots of connections. But to all of you who are selling on LinkedIn, I want you to understand something. This is a place where people's reputations are housed safely, where they can connect with peers, where they can manage their image and their brand and all of those things. It's
Hmm.
not a play. It's not a sales platform. It's not meant to be a sales platform. It's not a
Mm.
place for you to go select people to pitch sales to. If you want to sell to the people you meet on LinkedIn, contact them. Like,
Hmm.
send them an email. A cold email is going to be more productive than having your reputation tarnished because you got on LinkedIn and tried to connect with a bunch of people and sell them stuff.
Yeah.
That's gonna hurt you. So my recommendation is rethink your strategy because that's the wrong damn way to do it.
It's really interesting. I feel okay, and I'm not in sales, so I don't, I'm kind of talking out of my ass here, but I feel like LinkedIn has developed all of these tools. So for example, even this live event, when I went to create the event, you can pay to boost it. You can pay to, for this campaign tool. And they're really encouraging people. It seems to me like they are encouraging people to get on and use the platform to sell. And it's turning into much, I mean, it's fully like a pay to play model at this point. You have to pay to see who viewed your profile. You have to pay to use other tools. But I feel like, generating leads and all of that is very much something LinkedIn is trying to position itself to do. But you're saying rethink the whole strategy. So, okay, let's say I'm a salesperson. I work for a tech company. I have to do cold outreach. What should I do differently?
You should be upfront. You should say that when you're
Yeah.
connecting and trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn. You should say, "Hey, I'm Carl Frost. I work for this company. We're responsible for helping people build their brand, or we're responsible for helping people find realistic candidates, or whatever it is you're responsible for,
Mhm.
say that up front. I'd like to have a conversation with you. And even when you're trying to connect, say it. Don't ask them to connect. Tell them what you want to do.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
tell them what you want to do. And people are going to respond to authenticity, and they're going to respond to kindness and honesty. Those are qualities that innately make you a better human being. So
Hmm.
be a better human being,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah, LinkedIn is like any other company, and they do want to be a full service place.
Hmm.
But when I have when I submit a resume to LinkedIn, I'm saying this is who I am.
Hmm.
I'm either hiring people or I'm for hire, you know.
Hmm.
But that's where I put my reputation. That's where I put my status. All of that should be protected.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk to me and connect with me, be honest about it.
Yeah. That's my thing. Just be honest about it.
Be
Honestly,
honest.
some of these folks, I would actually listen to their sales pitch. Like some of them are
100%.
providing services and doing things that I'm like, okay, I can, maybe I'll need that someday.
Yeah.
But the minute I feel like I've been tricked into the interaction, I'm out, I'm done. And
Well,
it,
and here's the thing, Jess. Like when you can't help it. You can't help but do that. It's not because you choose to be an asshole to somebody because they're wanting to say something. It's a social, like I say, there's a human disconnect. I included you into my sphere. Well, it's like welcoming you into my home, and then having you get there and try to sell me a remodel job
right.
when we're there for a birthday party.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's not how you do business. That is no way to do it. So if you're going to subscribe to LinkedIn and you're going to go on there and get sales leads, I'm saying don't reach out to me and say, "Hey, I see what you're doing. Can I connect?" and
Yeah.
then later come at me with, hey, let me say all of this. That's
It's
going to piss me off. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm not going to do it. I want people to be authentic and talk to me face to face. Tell me what they want to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's also just complete bullshit. If you say, I'm so impressed by all your success in your business, it's like, it's bullshit. I know you have no idea who I am.
Yeah, bingo, bingo.
You're not even
Yeah.
like doing your research. So it makes me think that they're just some of these folks are trying to cast a wide net, thinking it's like scammers. It reminds me of scammers. They'll text and email, millions and millions of people because if even 1% of those people take the bait, then they're going to make a profit. And I feel like this is the same way. It's a very much throw shit at the wall and see what sticks approach.
But it is, and like I said earlier in the call, if you're one of those people doing that, you're gonna ruin your own reputation, but because
Yeah.
it will catch up to you. But you can have a successful sales presence on LinkedIn if you're honest and upfront about what you're doing. I
Hmm.
looked at your profile. I saw all of your qualifications. I'm really impressed and happy that you started your own business. And I have some things that might help you get to where you're going faster.
Hmm.
We don't have to connect if you don't want to, but I would sure like to talk to you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes. If
the
someone said
ne-
that to me, I would totally have a conversation with them.
I would too. I would 100% talk to anyone that approached me with a genuine, authentic, I want to help you. I saw what you're doing. It's not easy to open your own business. Actually, it's kind of brave when you step out there and do it.
Hmm.
And it's kind of scary. And I don't want you to be alone while you try to build it. Let me help you.
Yeah.
Like I can get behind that. I can talk to people that talk to me, but I can't talk to people that are trying to sell me, you know. I used to have a phrase when I was developing salespeople and talking to them about that. I would always talk to them about, don't get people to the counter before you even mention, oh, do you want an extended warranty? That stuff should happen on the sales floor.
Hmm.
Selling to people is a process where you meet them. They're a total stranger. You're going to meet them, and you've got about on a sales floor, you've got about 30 seconds to capture their trust.
Hmm.
You know, here's what I used to say to people when I worked at a company called Ultimate Electronics. It was a high end home theater place, and it was kind of a national chain,
Hmm.
semi-national. Um, they hired me to work in their store, and in this store in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in this store, I noticed there was 45, 50 salespeople. Okay. And in those 45, 50 salespeople, they made anywhere from $30,000 a year to $160,000 a year. And guess what? They were all selling the exact same stuff.
Hmm.
Same exact stuff. So what made this guy different from the guy at the bottom?
Yeah.
Well, the guy at the bottom didn't have any chops. Um, he didn't understand how to even begin a conversation and get someone to want to talk to. The
Yeah.
guy at the top, at the very top, some of those guys, you had to watch out for them. But the large majority of the upper half of salespeople, those guys knew how to talk to people.
Yeah.
So I decided early on, and you remember when I was doing this, Jess, and
I
and
do.
and I started making really good money there. But the way I did it was I always set myself up in the first 30 seconds. Hey, Jess, I'd walk up to someone, I would shake their hand. I'm Carl. Thanks for coming in today. Why are you here?
Hmm.
Well, I want to look at TVs or whatever it was. And I would say, well, you're awful lucky because I'm here and I got to meet you, and that's good for you because I'm going to show you everything you need, and you're going to have more fun doing it with me than you would anyone in this store. And I promise you, when you leave, you're going to have what you need to be successful with yourself, and you're going to be happy you came here. Is that
Yeah.
fair? And in that short frame, they either turned and ran, but if they stayed, we
Yeah.
were going to have a good time. And you know what? I never had anyone turn and run. Like,
Never, not once.
not one time.
Wow.
People love to get excited.
They
When you
do.
go and buy something, I promise you, you may not be able to remember every time you had a really good experience, but you remember every bad experience.
Hmm.
Every single one of them, you remember how that person treated you, what that experience was like. But those good experiences, oh, those are like Christmas presents.
Yeah, and I think there's like, okay, there's the really good ones where people treat you great. There's the really bad ones where you remember how awful they were to you. But I think there's a lot of gradients in between where
Yes.
maybe they're perfectly nice people and they didn't do anything quote unquote wrong. They just
Mhm.
something about their approach gives you the ick. And I am getting the ick from people selling on LinkedIn right now. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, like a lot of your experience is you're face to face with people, you're on a sales floor. With the way technology has evolved now, a lot of things people are selling is technology, especially on LinkedIn.
Technology driven, yeah.
It is. And a lot of the contact people are making is not, they're not picking up a phone and calling. You're not hearing a person's voice. They're not coming to your door. I mean, actually, that's not totally true. I'll give you an example in a minute, but by and large, people are reaching out over email, over LinkedIn, messages, whatever. So is the approach, does it need to be calibrated and differentiated like online versus in person?
I mean, there's probably a certain amount of that that I'd say absolutely,
Yeah.
but I would say 80%, if not higher, 80% of the issue is understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
Hmm.
Like, why are you a salesperson?
Yeah.
Are you there genuinely just to make a dollar, really? Or are you there to enrich someone's life? Do you
Mm.
understand what you're doing and why you're doing it? If you understand, it's a good example. Whenever each of you guys were born, as soon as I held you guys, I knew that, huh,
Everyone should know dad can't talk about me or my siblings or our mom without getting emotional. He's a very vulnerable, loving person.
yeah, I'm
And I love to
transparent.
see it. I love that.
Okay, so, but
Example.
I knew that I had to change what I was doing as soon as I held you guys. As soon as I held you, you were my firstborn. And I was like, okay, starting today, I'm going to be the kind of person I want them to be.
Yep. Yep. And I can vouch for that. You said that growing up, and I watched you. You modeled that for me. I mean, I think that's a large part of why I'm trying to do what I'm doing now.
Well,
Um,
yeah, that's it. You find something that you can hang your hat on
yeah,
because whenever you have that marker, then everything that you do bounces up against it. And it doesn't allow you to not understand. You have to find the answers,
yeah,
you know? Um, so yeah, I would say that if you can find that out, you're
yeah.
going to be okay. But you have to find the reason that you get out of bed in the morning because if you're just getting up and then getting dressed for work and hauling ass to to wherever it is you're going, when you get there, you're going to have as bad a day today as you did yesterday.
Yeah. Dad, you said something a minute ago that I wanted to go a level deeper on.
Okay.
You said, a lot of people are in sales. Maybe you're in sales because you're just trying to make a dollar, you're trying to make a living. You're looking at it as a job and nothing else. And so, and I want to say, I think that's a totally valid thing. Like people have jobs
100%.
to make money.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking a lot about this, and I know you have too, because we've had some good conversations about it.
Right.
I personally think that even if you're in a job just to make money, which is a perfectly valid reason to be in a job, honestly,
Oh
for a lot of
yeah.
people, the only reason to be in a job because there's lots of things people would rather be doing, and I think that's great. But if you can first, I think first it's knowing your values. So, like you're saying, figure out who you want to be, who you are, who do you want to see when you look in the mirror, and what kind of person do you want to be. Knowing your values is the first step. But then in this job, if you can find a way, to connect your values with something in your job, that's gonna be the bridge. Tell me if you agree with this. That's gonna be the bridge that gets you into being able to look at it as more than just a job. Even if it really is just a job and that's okay, you can change your mindset around it to be focused on how can I do this job in a way that brings me closer to the kind of person I want to be, that brings me closer to that goal of being this person. And then, even though the job itself is something that you only have because you have to have, it's not going to feel transactional to the people that you're dealing with. What do you think about that?
I think you're on to something that a lot of people never ever realize. I would say that whenever you start out your day in the morning, if you don't start your day off right, you're just reacting, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I wake up in the morning, I roll over and I can your mom who's normally asleep because I wake up so much earlier than she does.
You wake up wild early. It is
I know.
actually batshit early.
Yeah, that's the Carl time of day, you know.
Yeah, it's Carl
Most
time.
people don't know that there's a secret time that exists before you all wake up. That's when
Yeah.
I wake up. But I roll over and I see your mom laying there, and I just get really grateful before I even get out of bed that I get to sleep next to someone who's been my soul partner for 40 years,
Yeah.
you know. And then I get up. I feel really good about that. I get up. I go into the bathroom. I'm getting ready for work, and I look at the guy looking back at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, I know you get tired of hearing this, but I freaking love you," you know.
Yes.
And I have that conversation, and then I talk about my day before I leave the bathroom. Like today's going to be one of my best days. I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday. I don't know how, but I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And you're going to show me how to do it. I'm going to, maybe I'll have challenges, but I'm going to overcome every one of them. I'm going to do it with a smile on my face because that's what my kids would do. And I go,
Yes. Yes.
you know, if you can create a situation in your world where you have something that you have to live up to for you,
Hmm.
it's not hard. It's not going to be hard to sell to people, even if you have to do it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Find a way to do it with dignity and authenticity, and you're going to let people know that they're valued and that you see them and that you appreciate them and you're there for them. If you don't give someone a service before you ever ask for anything, we got
Oh,
no
yeah.
right asking. You've got no right to ask. That's really what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really about connecting. And I can
Yeah.
imagine so I've had a couple of sales jobs in my day, and let me tell you, I was terrible at it. Um for all kinds of reasons. But I can imagine people in sales, anyone listening right now, some of them thinking like, it ain't really that deep. You go, you sell the thing, you make the money. It's just you just know your product and then you ask people for the sale. It's not that deep. And I guess I'm here to challenge that and say maybe it's not that deep, but it can be. And if you make it that deep, you're going to feel better about what you're doing. You're going to like yourself more if you do it from a values driven perspective.
100%, 100%. I mean, I don't care if you're a sanitation worker, a dog catcher, a policeman, a
Yeah.
lawyer, whatever you do for a living. Why are you doing it? And what kind of day do you want to have?
Yeah.
What kind of life do you want to live?
Yeah. And even if
You,
you're in a job that you hate,
it doesn't
maybe
matter.
maybe the reason you're doing it is because you don't want your family to starve. That's a worthy reason. So
Yes.
that's your why. So now find ways to focus your day toward, how do I want to say this? This is like new. I haven't rehearsed this. It's like find ways to add perspective into your day, to look at your day, look at the situations you're in as more opportunities to further that why,
I
to
call those
serve your
joyful
why.
opportunities, but I mean joyful surprises. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're right because honestly, it's so easy to let especially if you're home alone in your office working. That's a good example because it doesn't take very long to get very deep into your computer and all of it start coming at you, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then I don't know about you, but I have to stop and get up and go outside and get some fresh air and go, okay, this there's joyful surprises all around me. There's opportunities all around me, even in there on that computer, and I'm letting some of that affect what I'm doing. So I take a deep breath, get a shot of coffee or a glass of tea or whatever,
Yeah.
reshape my thinking and go back at it.
Yeah.
My intention is always to try to be in a state of joy, regardless of the situations that are coming up. Because when you are happy, it's proven 1,000 times over, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to realize opportunities quicker. You're going to
Hmm.
realize someone in distress and want to help them easier. You're less likely to take advantage of someone when an opportunity exists where you can jump. You
Hmm.
might still jump, but you're gonna enjoy it, and they're gonna enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's harder to do things that you can't look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and go, "Hey, I did really good today."
Yeah, your morning routine reminds me of this book I read by Mel Robbins called The High Five Habit. And
Yeah,
every morning she walks in and gives herself a high five in the mirror. And I've tried
yeah,
it, and just like she said I would, I felt ridiculous, but I also felt boosted a little bit. And in the book, she talks about your reticular activation system. So basically, when you her example is trying she tries to look for hearts everywhere, like a heart pattern in a thing, or
yeah.
and the more she's looking for that, the more her brain sees hearts everywhere. And you can do that with anything. And so it reminds me a lot of what you're saying here with trying to always gravitate back to happiness. We can't be happy 100% of the time. That is called toxic positivity. It's physically impossible. But what we can do is always be trying to move back toward happiness. We can always be trying to, you know, work through our anger or our sadness or whatever it is, and find peace. And when we can find things that make us feel closer to the person we want to be, that reaffirm our values, the more we're looking for that, it's just like Mel Robbins looking for hearts everywhere. The more we look for it, the more we see it. The more we look for opportunities and things to feel joyful about, the more we find those things. Even as the world feels like a dumpster fire that's burning down all around us, we can still, honestly, it's like going to help us, it's going to help us survive, to find things that we can feel connected to and joyful about.
100% of the time. 100% of the time. I just like if you can create a space where you can be like when I first started that mirror exercise, I felt so silly saying that to myself.
Yeah.
But I did that a few times, and then one morning it just blew me
Like locked
away.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's a
yeah.
very
Whenever you,
thing when it locks in like that.
oh my gosh, you can't make this stuff up. I mean,
Yeah.
whenever you have a quantum moment, you take a quantum leap in your personal development. Every time you make a connection like that, when you're feeding your soul, um, you're on the right track. But if you're
Yeah.
getting if you're getting lost in the shuffle and just running to that next sale just to try to get a check mark by your name, you're
Hmm.
doing it for the wrong reason. You're doing it for the wrong reason. The reward. Some say the reward is in the chase, and I agree. That's fun.
Yeah.
But the real reward is whenever you help someone,
Hmm.
truly help someone, um, and you make a difference. I was in a cell phone store one time, and it was kind of crazy. I was having a conversation with one of the salespeople in the store, and we were talking about selling an extended warranty on a cell phone. Why would you? Why do I want to do that? Is what this salesperson was saying, and so I said, well. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do it, but let me tell you why I would want to do it. Because I would want when my wife or my daughter comes into your cell phone store and says, my phone broke, I would want you to say, well, let me take care of that for you. I wouldn't
Mm,
want you to say, I can't help you. 15 minutes later, a young lady came in carrying a baby in her arm and holding her toddler's hand. And she was kind of teared up and she was stressed out.
mhm.
The associate approached her and said, how can I help you? Well, my husband is traveling. He's coming home actually from Kuwait or somewhere. He was a soldier. He's coming
Okay.
home, and my phone broke, and I need a way for him to be able to get in touch with me, like at any time. And I need you to help me. Well, let me look up your account. So they looked up her account. Ma'am, I'm sorry, you didn't get an extended warranty on this phone, so there's not much I can do for you.
Oh my gosh.
So this woman is standing there with this baby on her hip. Her husband's coming home from Kuwait. He can't reach her. She's got like 200 bucks in her wallet. She doesn't have enough money to get another phone.
Yeah.
Um, um, and that happened right in front of us. So I turned to the salesperson and said, there you go. Wouldn't it have been nice to be a hero for her?
Mm,
Every time you help someone,
yeah. So she was just shit out of luck, or was there anything they could do for her? Now I'm like invested in this woman's story.
yeah, I know. Yeah, no, they were able to get her a phone, but it wasn't like a nice phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She had to sell. They were able to leave her with a working device. She was able to leave with a working device, just not as nice as the one that she thought. Yeah, the one that broke. It was a really nice phone. So, but they
Man.
were able to help her. But that's not an experience you want to give anyone. Every time you make a decision for someone to not go the extra mile and do the next thing, you have
Hmm.
a thing that you always say the thing,
Uh-huh.
right? Say the thing.
Yeah.
Always say the thing. Be honest. Be genuine.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you believe. It matters if you think things through. I think most of the time you're going to realize if I can do something to help someone else, I'm going to do that thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, Dad, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What about customers who are real assholes? How do you keep your values in mind and keep, your joy and it's like it's easy for us to like sit on a podcast and talk about it, but when you're in the moment and someone is being super disrespectful to you. I worked at a cell phone store when I was 19. I once had a grown ass man throw a phone at my head. Do you think I wanted to help him? Absolutely not. In fact, I wanted to find every reason I could to say no and block any ability to help him because of how
I
he treated
have
me.
I have no problem at all asking people to leave my establishment when they act like that,
Yeah.
at all. Because at that point you can't. You can keep your composure.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a good example. I was working in actually it was a Best Buy. I was the general manager at this Best Buy,
Mm-hmm.
and a customer came in to buy some equipment. And before they would buy, they cornered me. They found out who I was and they cornered me. I have a complaint about one of your salespeople. And she was talking about this guy named Billy, and Billy was like a 65-year-old gentle giant guy who never he wouldn't hurt a fly. He would walk around an ant before he would step on it. I mean, this guy was gentle
Mm-hmm.
and he was 100% honest.
Yeah. Just a real
And
sweetheart.
yeah, she was trying to get a deal.
Mm.
So she came at me with all of these dishonest things that Billy had told her. And I said, for, for where was this? And she said, well, he was ringing me up at the counter in the Magnolia room. So we go in the Magnolia room and Billy is standing there looking at me. And I was like, it's okay, Billy. So I walked her up to him and I said, this is the guy you're talking about doing all of these things. And she said, yes. I said, well, you probably are going to want to go to another store. Because here's the thing. Billy has worked for us for years. Billy gets nothing but raving compliments. He's never been dishonest to anyone ever, even when it was to his detriment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to ask you to not shop here.
Wow.
Because when you know, you know. When people live into their values, it doesn't matter what anyone else says.
Oh my God. Imagine having a boss that would go to bat for you like that.
Yeah,
We need more of that.
yeah. Okay, I got to tell you this story
Okay.
since you brought that up. Okay, so years ago, one of the things that Ultimate asked me to do one time was, and you guys remember when we went to Iowa, right?
Yep.
There was a store up there that was just tanking, and it was like the at the time, Ultimate itself was like 60% year over year up
Yeah.
versus last year.
Hmm.
This store was 45% below where they
Mm.
were the previous year. So they said, we need you to go to Iowa, and you're gonna need to, we need you to get this store performing again. You're gonna need to fire everyone and start from scratch. So I said, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you will give me 90 days when I get to Iowa to assess the team and hire the people I want to hire and fire the people that I feel like I need to fire. If you let me make that call, I'll go and I'll do my best to turn that store around.
Hmm.
Well, no one in the company wanted to go to Iowa. So finally, they said, okay, go do your thing. So I got to this store and I realized right away that the sales management team that was there, who I was told to fire, were doing everything by the book according to how they were told by their previous manager, who did not know what the hell he was talking about. He didn't know how to run a business. So I had a meeting with them and I said, listen, guys, I was honest. I was told to fire all of you guys, but I've talked to all of you and I see real dedication and I see intentional execution. You guys are doing everything you thought you were supposed to be doing. So I'm going to say, if you're with me, let's decide today that we're going to be the team and we're going to build this store back. Yeah, 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 yeah. So we set out on a journey to do that. Eventually, the sales manager that was there that I was told to fire right away was promoted to his own store.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Because
but
you believed in the potential of people and all they needed was development.
all they needed was development. The operations manager there was a young lady. Her name was Aga. I don't remember what her last name was, but she was
I
so
remember
kind.
her. She was
Yeah,
so
she was such a sweetheart. She came to me one day and she said, we have a big, 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 big problem. I said, well, what's the problem? Well, it's Mike. She said, Mike was 6'5" and he's like 4 inches wide between his shoulders. He was huge, but Mike was a teddy bear.
hmm
I said, well, what's the problem, Aga? Well, a couple of salespeople have been telling me how bad he smells, and I wasn't paying attention to it because I thought they were just being, assholes.
Oh man.
But then I've had a couple of customers tell me, and I don't know how to address this.
Yeah.
And so in my office, there was my desk, and you came in the door, and my desk faced the door, but to the
Mhm.
side of that door was her desk, which faced me. So I said, Avi, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to show you how to handle this. You get Mike and you bring him into the office and you
Mhm.
sit down at your desk. And I just want you to in there to observe what's going on. So she does, and Mike comes in. And Ultimate Electronics paid their salespeople. Um, I don't remember what the phrase was that they used. Oh, it's a minimum. It's called a minimum. And it was just a minimum hourly wage that you could make if your sales weren't up to snuff.
Okay.
But the minimum, the sales didn't have to be much to be way above the minimum.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but Mike at the time he was below the minimum, and so anyway, Mike comes in, and I said, Mike, come on in and have a seat. I want to talk to you about some things and just kind of get your feel on a couple of things and see if I can't help you um, with your performance. Is that okay? And you're not getting graded here. need to have a conversation with you. He said, okay. So he came in and he sat down. I was looking at him and said, Mike, tell me realistically, are you satisfied with the kind of money that you're making at this store?
Mhm.
He said, well, I do okay. I said, well, I know, but do you like to live okay, or do you want to live better? Do you want more money? Because like everybody's making quite a bit more money than you are. So would you like me to help you make more money? He said,
Mhm.
yeah. I said, well, Mike, I have some critical feedback for you that's going to be hard to hear, but if you'll bear with me, we'll get through this and I'll show you how to do what you need to do. And he said, okay. I said, Mike, you smell really bad.
Oh my gosh.
August jaw hit the desk.
Yeah,
You know,
because she's like, he just said it. He just said the thing.
I just said the thing. Yeah, you'd have been proud of me. I
I
said the
am
thing.
proud of you. I'm listening to the story and I'm like, oh my God.
So I said, Mike, you smell bad. I don't know why. I know that you're a considerate guy and you do everything that you feel like you should be doing. I said, but you do smell bad. I mean, I'm looking at you. Everybody wears a shirt and tie here, and your shirt's all wrinkled up, and like, tell me what's going on.
Hmm.
And he said, well, he said, look, I shower. And I said, look, I believe you do. I'm not saying you're a dirty guy.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just trying to see it. Okay, well, I shower every day. I come to work, and by 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm so big. I mean, I can't help it.
yeah.
I said, so you need additional grooming at different times during the day? He said, yeah. I said, okay. Well, what about your shirt? He said, well, I'm not like my iron isn't the best. I said, Mike, if I told you a couple of things that we could do to help you, would you do it 100% the way I'm asking you to do it? And he said, 100%.
Hmm.
So we had a cash till that we would use for different things, would come up until the store had this cash reserve. And I pulled out some cash and I said, Aga, I want you to take Mike and get him a grooming kit that he can keep here. And Mike, you can keep it in my office. No one even has to know it's here except you and me, right? We'll keep
Hmm.
it in the office. You come in and get it anytime you want. My door is always open. You'll never even have to knock. Just come get it, do what you need. And then I said, also, I want you to buy an iron and an ironing board and give it to him to take home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he did.
That is, I'm just, I'm honestly like speechless about, I talk about hard conversations a lot and how people's inability to have hard conversations really it really does society a disservice. I think so much of what goes wrong at work
Yeah.
is the result of people's inability to communicate directly and clearly. And you did on a very hard topic with such kindness and such like I mean I just yeah, I don't even know what to say. Like that's what we need more of in the world. That's what we need more
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So, you have to decide what kind of person you want to be. If you want kindness in your life, be kind.
Yeah.
If you want love, then love people, right?
Yeah.
Don't judge everyone. Everybody does not live how you live. They have different things happening. So when
Hmm.
they're doing weird shit, you don't understand. Don't judge someone because you don't understand,
Yeah.
right? Be kind, but always, if there's an opportunity for you to help someone to offer a solution to something you're seeing that they may need help with, offer it.
Yeah.
Be kind, be helpful. Try to find a way to enrich a life today. It's not that hard. It's not that hard when you're at the store to look at that person behind the counter and see their name on their name badge and go, "Hey, Grace, I see you got a really pretty smile. You should wear it more often. I like it. Thank you. It's making
Smile
my."
more, toots.
I mean, just whatever it is. They don't hear that stuff.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. But
Well, I'm telling you, every time I say stuff like that to people, I see their eyes light up.
yeah, people definitely like to be told they have a nice smile for sure.
Whatever it is. I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But But even if you just use their name, thank you, Grace. That's really nice. I appreciate
Mhm.
it. You know,
Yeah.
be human, like
Yeah.
human first.
Human first. That's
That's
right.
it.
I
Right.
I want to tell you something that I've been reflecting on and trying to practice that is really, really hard for me. And it's related to kindness. So I agree. Kindness is amazing. I want to see more of it in the world. I have been for a few years trying to be a much more kind person.
Uh-huh.
And recently, it occurred to me, when we talk about becoming closer to the person we want to be, knowing our values, is this going
Yeah.
to get me closer to that goal? Being kind to people, I believe this, and again, am still working on putting it into practice because I'm a human being and it's hard. Being kind to people has nothing to do with whether they deserve it or not. It has
That is
nothing to do.
100% correct.
Yeah, like it's even someone acting like an asshole. I want to be the kind of person who will be kind to them anyway. Now, I have boundaries. I think kindness needs to come with boundaries. I think boundaries allow us to be more kind because we know what we're willing to accept and not accept. And sometimes the kind thing to do is detach and disengage.
Well,
But
can I just really quick on that
yeah,
before you move on? Okay, really quick on that. The number one key to you finding your own joy and living in a constant state of joy is to love yourself first.
yeah.
Because if your inner light isn't on, you
Hmm.
can't be the mom you need to be, or the wife you need to be, or the CEO you need to be. You
Yeah,
have to love yourself first. You have to trust yourself. And you're right, kindness. Um, there is a time when you have to stand firm, but you can still do that with kindness. You can still say,
exactly.
you know,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Like it to me, it's a perfectly kind thing to say. I don't think I can interact with you the way you're speaking to me right now. So I'm gonna go and maybe we can circle back later, you know?
yeah, 100%.
Whereas just 10 years ago would have been like, screw you. I don't care. And like with probably a very funny insult. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I don't want to be that person. And I'll tell you when I'm in situations where because I'm, listen, I've been a woman in tech for 15 years. Like I've been in some situations that make my blood absolutely boil.
Yeah.
And it can be very hard to use that restraint and to not go back to that, like just knee jerk, like, oh yeah, well, whatever it is. But ever since I've started thinking about it in terms of my goals, which are to be a kind person, to be this ideal, brave and humble, those are my values. Ever since I started looking at it like that, it occurred to me that it actually doesn't matter how angry I am at someone. It's okay for me to be angry at someone. That's something for me to work through on my own. And the way I treat them, the way I work through that has nothing to do with whether they deserve empathy and kindness. I'm going to give it to them because that's who I want to be. It feels good. It makes me like myself better.
That is one of the key components to it, sweetheart. Just if you that's what loving yourself is.
Yeah.
That's what loving yourself first is.
Yeah.
But you can't possibly do that with other people if you don't practice it on yourself. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So good on you, man. That's a high five that I'm going to give you the next time I see you.
So, okay, so it sounds like if I'm reading the tea leaves right here, it sounds like one of the biggest things that salespeople can do to strengthen their approach and make it less icky is to, number one, connect with your values, figure out who you want to be.
Hmm.
And number two, look for the things in the world. Always be on the lookout for more things that you can be like, oh, I like that. That makes me happy. That makes me feel joy. That's something that I can do that makes me feel more like this person that I'm saying I want to be. And really it kind of starts to fall into place from there because when you know who you are and you're working to be authentic and kind, then you're just not gonna be icky on LinkedIn
Or anywhere else,
or anywhere else.
really. I mean, there's if I were working for a company that said, "Hey, Carl, we're going to need you to reach out to people on LinkedIn and sell some stuff,"
Hmm.
I would find a way to be kind and do that. I would reach
Yeah.
out to you and I would say, "Jess, here, my name's Carl Frost, and I work for this company, and here's something that we do for people."
Hmm.
Right? And I honestly feel like it would be worth a conversation to you, for us to connect long enough to talk. So please let me know if this is acceptable to you.
Yeah.
I would find a way to do that with kindness and humility and grace and, all of the things.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't have to feel guilty for doing what my company expected me to do.
Hmm.
And if they said you gotta connect with them first, I would get a different job. you
Yeah.
know, or I would say, can I connect with them my own way? And then I would, in that connection request, the first thing I would say is what I told you a while ago, and I would follow it up at the end with, if this is acceptable to you, can you accept my connection, or whatever?
Yeah.
Can we connect?
I think that phrasing is so important. The way we ask for things matters.
It does. It does. You have to keep, for you to love yourself, you have to keep your dignity in check and your pride. And, you have to carry yourself the way you would want your kids to carry themselves.
Yes, when I'm asking someone for something, I try to do it in a way that lets them preserve their power and ability to say no. So instead of
100%.
saying, can you do this or will you do this? I'll say, would you be open to doing this? Would you be willing to do this? Would you
Better
consider?
still. Yeah.
And like
Yep.
I know
Yep.
that's like very nitpicky, but I do think that the way we say things, the language we use matters a lot. And
Girl, it does.
yeah, like no,
It
it's not
does.
going to get me canceled if I say, "Will you do this?" But it does feel better in the interaction, and I appreciate it when people speak to me that way too because it feels more conciliatory, I guess. It feels more mm, I don't know. There's a word that I can't think of, but it just feels better to me.
Well, it is. I've never, ever had to apologize to someone for being honest.
Yeah. I
I've never
mean,
had to apologize. And I've never regretted being honest. But I have regretted taking advantage of people because that happened years ago before I learned all of this stuff,
sure. Yeah.
and I know I've regretted that,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I've never regretted being kind to someone and helping them.
yes. Yes.
So
I have all
that,
kinds of things I've said to people that I regret. Anyone who
oh,
went to high school with me, I probably said something to that I regret.
we all do, right? Yeah, but it's just that's part of the soup we live in.
Yeah.
you know. But I
Yeah.
would say anyone out there that's going through something that is looking for a way to find that a way to turn that switch on that's inside of you,
Hmm.
reach out because I can help you with that. We can help you with that, you know.
Yeah. Real quick, I just saw a comment come through. And by the way, I've kind of seen these comments coming through, but I've been not super paying attention to them. But this comment says, it's from Moses. He says, I've always believed liking yourself is way more powerful than loving yourself because liking yourself requires holding space for the self-hatred that comes along for the ride. And okay, so I actually do think there's a distinction between loving yourself and liking yourself. This resonates with me. I think that loving yourself is like, I accept myself. I'm going to make sure I have what I need. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to give myself the nutrition and the sleep and I'm going to love myself. Liking myself means I feel good about how I handled that. I feel proud of how I interacted with that person. I feel I like how I am with people. I like that. I think there's definitely a longer conversation to be had on the distinctions between
Oh
self-like and
yeah, yeah.
self-love.
I'd love to talk to Moses more about that. And to be fair, Moses, I will say that mirror exercise that
Yeah.
I do acknowledge in that process. Hey, man. you got up, and I know I've been making decisions that haven't helped us much, and you got the scars and bruises to prove it. But I made them, and you're still here, so thanks. Like
Yeah.
you're right. You gotta. I mean, you can. You know, I love my wife,
Yeah.
but she's also my best friend because I really like her.
And you like her. Okay, I don't mean to cut you off. We can do a part two if anyone wants to do that, but we are at time and LinkedIn is going to cut us off. If anyone would like to reach out to me or my dad, LinkedIn is the best place to do that right now while we get our websites and all of that jazz figured out. But thanks to everyone who listened,
Yeah,
and
thank you so much.
we're going to have more of these conversations. This was fun.
Cool, cool. All right.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.